No, I think it's time for Josh and Stephen in their moment of mission to come and offer us a word.
Good morning. I do not care about talking about money in church. It's not my favorite thing to do. So when the need arose for this to happen, I began praying immediately, asking for guidance about what to say. I did not receive the answer to that prayer until yesterday while I was working in my workshop. So I was in my workshop doing maintenance on things because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it's a little bit more expensive to live these days. And it's easier to keep things working than it is to buy new stuff. And I had to buy some propane, and it cost about 6 times what it did last time I bought some propane. And I was contemplating all of this, and then a Carrie Underwood song came on. Perhaps you know what I'm talking about? Jesus, Take the Wheel. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, I'd like to see the nod. So I was listening to Carrie Underwood sing Jesus, Take the Wheel, and with apologies to Miss Underwood, the theology is totally out of whack. Well, first of all, Christ doesn't call us when we're in difficult times to throw our hands up and say, all right, Jesus, this is on you. He calls on us to pray for guidance. He calls for us to pray for wisdom. He called for us to work through the things we're supposed to work through. So she was off on that. And Rachel, you might want to include in the next paper that you do that perhaps theologically speaking, it would be the Holy Spirit that we talk to about that instead of Jesus, because he was sent to be our guide, but you and I can talk about that later in case I'm wrong. So we're going to be talking about some hard things. Stephen's going to be talking about hard things. I get to just warm the crowd up, so that's pretty good for me. But as he talks, I want you to think about not throwing your hands up in the air and saying, Jesus, take the wheel, but saying, Lord, what can I do as an individual to help this church get from where we are to where we need to be? And we're doing the right things. I think we're doing everything that we're supposed to do, but life is getting a little bit more challenging. So that's the crowd warm-up that you get, sir.
Thank you, Josh. So two quick notes before I get started. One, I don't have the smooth radio voice of Ronnie Lauder. And two, I walked out this morning without my readers, and the font on this paper is kind of scary, so just bear with me. But as Josh said, my name is Stephen Johnson. I've been the chairperson of the Finance Committee since January of 2021. I believe I just hit the halfway point of my time in this role, and I'm continuously amazed by the strength and commitment of Trinity to serving God through our members' contributions of their time, talent, and treasure. I'm here to quickly provide a high-level overview of our overall financial position. Before I do that, I do want to recognize the other members of the Finance Committee: Reed Schwartz, Kristen Smith, Glenn Givens, Greer Blackwelder, David Lee, Mary Catherine Holme, Kenneth Mims, Buck James, Hugh McMillan, Donna Merle, Charles Seegers, Josh, and also our treasurer, Gail Perosi. Trinity is so fortunate. Each of these folks are dedicated, thoughtful, and deliberate servants of God and Trinity, and we should all be thankful for their leadership and service to our church. Our overall financial position is strong. As of April 30th, our total cash account balances are $1,753,412. However, $1,645,000 of those monies are designated funds, meaning they are restricted in how and by whom they can be spent. We use the undesignated funds for our operational expenses, meaning we have about $110,000 on hand to pay for everyday expenses. We like that number, of course, to be a little bit higher. Over the last 2 years, our giving has remarkably remained steady. Even in the face of COVID-19 and the uncertainties we all faced with the pandemic, you all continued to give in the name of God. As most of our programming was canceled the last year because of COVID-19, we operated with a surplus. Because of your giving, we have been able to dedicate the necessary resources for several major maintenance projects, including resealing the stained glass windows in the sanctuary and resealing and deep cleaning the outside of our facilities. Each of these major maintenance projects were decades past due. We also paid 100% of our apportionments to the conference. As the world around us has returned to some semblance of normalcy, so has our spending. Our giving year to date is about the same as last year, but our expenses have of course increased. By way of example, we have committed more funds to our children and youth ministries, which are beginning to flourish. Rachel has done a tremendous job with our youth, and I expect Christy will do the same with our children's ministry. We have invested in these areas, and we are now seeing God's blessings in our programs. We as a congregation must continue to invest our time, our commitment, and our tithes and our offerings so that we can continue sharing God's love and growing Trinity. Throughout my time as a member of this church, Trinity's spirit of giving and spreading of God's love has always been strong and unrivaled. We don't just set the bar for other churches in Sumter, we keep raising it for ourselves, demonstrating our long-standing commitment to serving God and our community. I'd like to end my remarks with 2 words: God's love. Help us to always remember why we are Trinity, why we support each other, and why we give our tithes and offerings. It is our belief and commitment in spreading God's love. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you too, Josh.